All right. We are back with another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys are having a great day, whatever day it is for you and wherever you are. As always, it is Friday on the podcast, so we're bringing that Friday energy to you. This is going to be an interesting day because usually, this is the Real Estate Investing Club. We're talking about investing in real estate, but usually we have on people like myself, general partners who are using this as a business. We're actively investing in real estate. We're building our portfolio. We're running the operations. Today's going to be a little bit different because we have Chris Miles with us on the show from Money Ripples. Chris focuses exclusively on the passive side of investing, putting his money to work without having to do all the work of meeting with the property managers, going over P&Ls, that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a good episode, Chris. Thanks for hopping on the show.
Hey, it's good to be back on, Gabe.
Absolutely. I told you before we got on here, we haven't changed the format. We like to start with stories. So why don't you take us to the beginning of your story in real estate and just tell us how you got here?
Yeah, let's go way back, right? In some ways, I kind of get offended when some people call me an OG in this space. I'm like, I'm not that old, okay? I'm not even 50 yet. But, I actually started out, funny enough, I was planning to become more of a business coach or advisor, consultant of sorts. Have you ever watched the movie Office Space? Where they're busting the printer and whatnot, or the Xerox machine? Like, I actually wanted to be the Bobs. I want to be the guy that went in, said, here's what you guys are doing wrong with your company, and then walk out with a big check.
What do you do here?
That's right. What do you do here? Nothing. Yeah. So,
Right.
So that was my goal. But I figured if I'm going to do that, instead of just getting the MBA, I should have real business experience and then go get my MBA. So I was trying to really build that portfolio of sorts. Right. And then I ended up trying to look for some business. So I took a hiatus from, a little sabbatical from college, went looking for a business. And the first one I found was being a financial advisor, not realizing they take anybody off the street as long as you could pass a test and not have robbed a bank, So that's what I did. I actually became a financial advisor, never went back to finish my degree. I actually dropped out of college and was an entrepreneur, and I love being an entrepreneur. And then 4 years in, I'm talking with my dad reaches out to me. Now, my dad was like the post-depression era penny pinching saver, right? Debt-free, paid off his house in 18 years. He was 100% debt-free. He was stuffing his 401k. He was like Dave Ramsey's dream come true, The poster child before Dave Ramsey was Dave Ramsey. And so anyways, my dad says, hey, listen, I'm 61. I want to retire. Can you sit down with me and help me out? And so I sat down with my dad and I'm looking at his finances. I said, Dad, here's the deal. If you want to retire today, based on being debt-free and all the money you've saved up in your mutual funds, you're going to need to die in about 5 or 6 years because that's when you'll run out of money. It's like, okay, that's not what I wanted to hear. You're supposed to tell me, yes, Dad, you can retire today because you did everything right. And I said, well, you did everything right. You just haven't done it long enough. 40 years, I guess, is not long enough. So you just need to work into your 70s, basically, and keep saving. You just save more. And I was not happy with that answer. And it was just a month later, I started talking with a friend of mine who I trained him to be a financial advisor, but then he quit to go do this stupid thing called real estate investing. You ever heard of it? So he goes to do that. And he starts telling me, he's like, yeah, Chris, my dad and I have partnered on some real estate deals, and we've now doubled his income at his job just with the investment money we're making from real estate investing. They were flipping primarily. I'm like, wait a minute. You've been doing this 5 months. Come on, that's too good to be true. There's no way that's possible. My financial advisor brain cannot handle this. and he finally just says, Chris, how many of your clients are financially free where they're not worrying about money every day? I said, well, even the retired ones worry about running out of money because they were afraid of outliving their money, right? He's like, well, that's a problem. Well, how about this? How many of you guys as financial advisors are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing the investments you've been recommending? And remember, this is the end of 2005, and I'm thinking about guys who have been working there since the 1970s. They don't seem like they're going to be retiring anytime soon. And I said, maybe none. There's your problem. And so he got me going down the rabbit hole a little bit. He got me reading a different Rich Dad Poor Dad book called Who Took My Money, which basically says mutual funds suck,
It's
and then I started listening to
Robert Kiyosaki. I haven't heard about that one.
Yeah, it's not as popular, right? But yeah, Who Took My Money? It's kind of like Who Moved My Cheese, but it's Who Took My Money, right? Talking about financial advisors and mutual funds. I mean, pretty much what I was starting to kind of question now already, especially after meeting with my dad. And so I read that book. Well, okay, I listened to the audiobook in 3 hours. I was done. So I was done with that in 24 hours. consumed it. And then I started listening to this AM talk radio show, because this is pre-podcast era, of these two real estate investors talking about different stuff, everything from founding fathers and creating wealth and principles of wealth and prosperity, and even like about passive income and such. And after a couple months, I realized I had a choice. Either I keep going down the path I was on, put blinders on, and just reject everything I was already learning, especially in the whole world of real estate and passive income, or I keep my integrity intact and I quit. And so I quit. I left the financial advising world at my height of my practice and said, I'll never teach about money again. I'll just be a mortgage broker, and I'll teach ballroom dancing on the side. And that's what I was doing. But I also want to know what these real estate investors are doing, because these guys were like their 20s and 30s, and they were actually financially prosperous versus the real estate, not the real estate, but the financial advisors. They're like broke, cheap, these cheap ass guys just like trying to like pinch every penny to try to, retire at some point. So I started learning from them, learn about their strategies, some of the flips and equity stripping. They do a lot of that, especially in 2006. I mean, appreciation was almost like 2021, if you remember that. So it was really easy. You could literally buy a property, do nothing to it, and just flip it a few months later and make money, right? So that's what I was doing. And what it was interesting is that later that next year, I realized, like, wait a minute. And I was doing that, but I also had some passive stuff. I turned my starter home into a rental and things like that. And the next thing I know, I'm like, wait, I've got enough passive income coming in, working a couple hours a week. I'm technically financially free. I'm actually able to retire at 28 years old. And that blew my mind, because as a financial advisor, I never thought that would be possible till my 40s. But that's what I did. I actually had done that. Of course, everyone wants to know how you did it, when you're 28 years old and quote unquote retired. And so 2007, I came out of retirement to teach people how to do what I did. Recession hit. I went broke, not bankrupt, but dang close. I went over $1 million in debt. Eventually dug out of that hole to where in 2016, I was finally able to do it the second time around. But that time around, I became more of the passive investor versus the active investor. Because I realized like I kind of sucked as an active investor. Like I was a horrible property manager. I realized that, I just my heart wasn't in trying to, do all the work. Nothing against, by the way, flipping, wholesaling, all that stuff. Like you could get absolutely sick rich, doing that kind of stuff. But for me, I just got to the point, I was like, I feel like I'm in a different phase of life now. I want to do more of the passive stuff. I want to let those guys do all the work, and then I be the passive investor.
Yeah. So it sounds like there was really two phases of your career. One phase, you were the active investor. You were out there. So what was your main strategy then? It was flipping houses?
Yeah, it was probably just flipping, renting, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, even my starter home, interesting strategy is I sold it at full appraised value to an investor, because in 2006, you could literally do, if you had good enough credit, 100% loan to value on those mortgages, which was part of the downfall, right? So I sold it at full appraised value in 2006 to an investor so I can get paid all the equity from the sale. And then I turned around and leased it back from him so that I can sublease the property and rent it out. So that's pretty much what the strategy I did with my starter homes. Like I want to get all the equity out without having to have a HELOC. And then of course, go and do it again, and just go rent it out again. But that's when I learned I was a bad property manager. I rented somebody that, lived a few blocks away. I should have known when I saw the condition of the property they were already in, that they might actually do the same thing with mine, because they were kind of hoarders, that kind of stuff. But again, I was just trying to make fast bucks, right? I was just like, strip the money out and do that. I did some private lending as well, like where I would lend money out and do stuff that way. But yeah, like it was primarily just doing that kind of stuff,
Okay. Flips and then mostly long-term rentals, not short-term?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
So at what point did you, going into your passive investing now, there's a lot of different ways to do it. What's your primary strategy when it comes to passive investing?
Depends on what year you ask me, right? That's the cool thing about real estate, is that you really can pivot and move investment alternatives, and depending on what's going on, what the market's like. So for example, when I first started, because I was scared out of my mind trying to get back into real estate the second time around. So finally, in the mid 2010s, I started putting my faith again into real estate, and so I started doing turnkey rentals, because I knew at least if I wasn't the property manager, that would be a good thing. So I started buying turnkey rentals.
For everybody listening, turnkey is just buying a property that you don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to add value. You just buy it. It cash flows. It really only works in the central markets at this point, but yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Nowadays, it's a very hard strategy. Like you have to think very long term for that kind of thing. Where back then you're going for at least 12% cash on cash, plus they're paying down your mortgage, plus they're doing all this other stuff that's helping you make a lot of money, right? So, appreciation's great too, especially when you have leverage with banks and whatnot. But no, like I just, that was a great strategy to start with, especially with the strong cash flow play that it had. And again, having a turnkey company do it, find the property for you. It's like served up a silver platter. It's almost like going to a buffet. It's like, well, what dish do you want? Like take a little of this, a little of that. Here's a little market from here, market from there. And like you said, Midwest to Southeast has typically been better and stronger over time. So I did that. I also started lending my money to, private money lending and stuff, so whether I was on title or into a debt fund, where it might be like multiple, like hundreds of investors into that are being loaning, money from a fund and that kind of thing. And then I'm going in as a passive investor doing that. That's worked great lately. Lending has been awesome in more recent past. I did syndications, even multifamily and whatnot. Obviously, that got kicked in the teeth the last 3 years, so that was a rough one for sure. I was fortunate that I didn't lose too much in that and from that strategy alone. I even do oil and gas, where I have like business partnerships there where literally getting paid royalties on anything they pull out of the earth in those places. So like in Texas or New Mexico, basins like that. Raw land, I actually have a partnership where I'm a 70% partner because I finance it. The 30% partners, they do all the work. They're finding the properties. They're essentially buying it wholesale, selling it at retail, but selling it on terms so that we're getting paid interest as well. So that's been awesome. I've probably invested about $500,000 or so into that partnership and making almost $13,000 a month on that, so that's
Great.
been really awesome. So just a number of different strategies. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, even like car wash businesses or whatever, like, different syndications that way, right? Self-storage, not as good of timing right now, but self-storage can be a very strong player depending on the markets too, so there's that's what I talk a lot about on my Money Ripples podcast is because a lot of these people that are high income earners that are just W-2 employees or business owners, they don't even know about these strategies, right? They just think it's you go buy a rental property in your backyard. It's like, no. In fact, your backyard probably sucks because if you live in the western half of the US like we do, rentals are horrible unless you're doing like short term, maybe.
They're
right?
not making money.
Yeah, you're not making money.
So you mentioned a lot of different strategies there. You said lending, raw land, rentals, syndications, all have pluses and minuses. What has been, how about today in today's market, July 2025, what is your go-to? What are you looking for out there to invest in?
Mostly it's been lending. Yeah, lending's been a stronger one, especially with, real estate flippers and whatnot, right? I mean, just really a great strategy that still works in this market. I'm not opposed to some of the other strategies, but I know like multifamily, for example, syndication there, you have to be very picky. And I'm very, it's kind of guilty until proven innocent when I'm looking at pro forma, right?
Yeah, which you should be.
That one. So I'd say
Pro
lending
formas
and
are
raw land
notoriously
partnerships
wrong.
would be the best. Oh, sorry, say that again.
I said which you should be because pro formas are notoriously wrong. Doesn't matter if you're getting
It's
it
like
from
financial
a seller
advisors
or
talking about the stock market returns, right? I mean, they always look good, but in reality, they may not be that way.
yeah, exactly. So lending, that's your go-to. So you're talking about hard money lending to flippers, or are you talking about, that's what you're talking about, bridge lending?
And even debt funds. I mean, there's been sometimes I'm just like, you know what? Instead of just finding the individual deal, if I just want to leave money parked and not have to keep moving it every 8 months or so, then even just doing a debt fund where they're lending it to hard money lenders and doing that sort of thing has been great. I can get a steady 10 to 12% return just doing that, So
Cool.
Definitely not as high as what you'd make as an active investor, but I'm not putting nearly the time either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is, I would consider that to be another business is lending your money out because you have to build the infrastructure. You have to find, flippers that you actually trust and that will do the job well. You have to underwrite the deal yourself. You can't just, invest in a property without knowing that it will actually be a deal because your money's there. And if you get a property back that is not worth what you actually put the money into it, then that's a problem.
Well, that's why I have other people like source that out. Like they're actually like screening them through and doing it for me because I don't want to have to like go. I mean, you can spend easily 10, 20 hours, just trying to sort, figure out if you want to even do one deal, right? I mean, I don't want to have to do that at all. So I usually have another group that's what they specialize in. And then, any of those notes that they're not buying for themselves, I can buy it myself if I want to go on the note directly. Or again, I just use a company that just lends out a lot of money to all kinds of investors. And I just invest in their fund and do it that way.
So for somebody listening who wants to start this strategy themselves, what are the things that you would suggest they start with to get the ball rolling?
I mean, first and foremost, you got to have cash. I recommend people have at least a couple $100,000 of cash first, just so you don't go all in on one passive strategy. I really do believe that there should be a limited amount of diversification. I say limited because some people like, I'll throw 25,000 here, there, and like just throw it all over the place with all kinds of people. I don't believe in that. I believe finding a few good people you trust, right?
Yeah.
Building your network. You can either build your own, like I had to do over the years, or you borrow somebody else's network and use theirs, right? And that's what a lot of our clients are doing is they're saying, hey, I don't have to go and find and spend hours and hours searching for people and seeing who's actually the good players versus the charlatans and the fakers and all that kind of stuff, the posers, so a lot of times people will use us for that. But, again, that's the hardest part. Once you have those relationships in place, then it's just a matter of, okay, what's going to be right in my investment portfolio? How do I diversify in different places? I even tell people, are you focused on cash flow versus growth? Because, for example, if people are looking for growth, cool, maybe a turnkey property could make sense, because cash flow is not going to be strong right now. Even out in the Southeast, it's still, you make 4 or 5% cash on cash, you're pretty happy, but when you factor in all the other returns, especially when there's appreciation and everything else, it could still beat a lot of other passive strategies over time,
Yeah.
Same thing with like, if they're more focused on cash flow, it might be like, let's look at some debt options, like some lending options here. And what's the right kind of lending? Do you want to be on an individual note where there's some more security and paper backing it? Or do you want, something more like a fund where you may not have, you're not on a specific property, but at least there's some diversification among the notes that you're invested in, right?
Yeah. So for somebody starting out, you say 200,000 to 300,000 they need to have available to invest, and then it sounds like you don't like the idea of investing small amounts. You want probably a minimum of 50,000 per investment, or what do you generally put per deal?
Yeah, usually most deals, they'll even require at least 25 to 50,000 anyways, especially if you're looking at syndications or whatnot. Even some of those funds as well. Some of them will require a minimum of 100,000 so, what I don't want people to do is like, I have got my first, $30,000. What do I put my money into? It's like, well, at that amount, you might put all in one deal, but likely you might just be a down payment on a property. Now, if you're a flipper already, you might be sourcing your own deals. And this is something you can actually do that, I'm in some mastermind groups where they're, actively flipping, wholesaling, doing stuff like that. Back in 2018, 2019, I was like warning these guys. I was just like, listen, like you guys are very transactional, but if you're not killing your food, right, you can't eat. Like you'll be just as broke as everybody else. You got to get, additional streams of passive income. And I said, like, look, you can look at all these guys in this room, in this mastermind, you could literally invest with each other, and do deals or cherry pick your own deals. Maybe some of your deals, like you're looking at, you could wholesale, maybe you keep it and you turn it into a rental, right? And you have, whether you want to be a property manager or not, you can figure that out, but do that. And the guys that survived the group after 2022, because a lot of them went out of business around that time. And these were guys that were like, by the way, doing like
A lot of
100 plus
flippers went out of
transactions
business at 2022. Oh, because
wholesalers, flippers, people like that. Like I saw some people go out of business in 2022 when things started getting a little bit rough, or even like 2021, even earlier sometimes, depending on like the market and what they were trying to do.
People were just raking in the dough. I think it was 20.
Oh yeah, these guys are.
Oh, I guess it was
100 plus.
2021. It was 2019 to 2021. People were just crushing it. 2018, really. And I got that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's, depending on which market they were in or what they were doing. Like some of them felt in 2020 as early as then, right? But yeah, I had one friend in Pennsylvania, like his whole business froze. His wholesaling business froze completely. And luckily he took my advice from the year or two prior. He started cherry picking his own properties. He's like, that was literally the only thing. After I laid off 75% of my workforce, that was the only thing that kept our doors open. Was I had cash flow coming in from my commercial or my single family homes. And that's the thing is like, you could still do it as an active investor, but just kind of broaden your portfolio to have additional streams of income coming in. So it's not just transaction based where for some reason, especially if like government says we're shutting you down or wherever it is, like we saw in 2020, that you still got other opportunities too.
Yeah. Yeah. Cash flow, in my opinion, I always invest in cash flow. If a deal doesn't pencil, if it doesn't bring money in on the get go, there's, I like value add. Value add's great, but if there's not
Yeah.
cash flow from day one, I am not interested. There's a lot of people who like the appreciation play, but I just can't trust it. You don't know where the market's truly going. And so cash flow in today's dollars, today's, figures, that's the only way to go.
Yeah. Value add is a trigger phrase for me. you know, if they say value add, like it better be cash flowing now. If not, like don't even throw the whole value add thing to me. I'm like, I'm not even going to bank on appreciation. Like that.
It's just a dream. It's just a
It's
dream.
just a dream. Yeah.
So you mentioned raw land in there too. I've done a few land deals. I like them. It is it's a different type of strategy. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing there and what you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, my strategy is I literally just finance it and they do all the work. But yeah, they're literally, I mean, they'll use VAs and whatnot to help just, find different deals, go through and just, filter out the right ones, make offers and do everything else. But their whole goal is just to see if they can make a, good wholesale, offer, right? Like just make a good offer, sell it retail, usually for about at least 2.5 to 3 times what we bought it for. So
Okay,
we'll
so you guys
retail it
are
back to consumers. It could be the farmer next door, if it's like, farmland or whatever it might be, or ranch land. It's like, hey, you want to buy some more property and expand your land? Here you go. Whatever it might be. And then of course they can sell it in cash outright, but often they're selling on terms, anywhere from 5 to 15 years max. Sometimes with interest, sometimes not. If it's a high enough markup, they might say, hey, 0% for the next 7 years, and they're literally just paying you principal, just paying you payments to pay that off within 7 years, So there's a lot of different strategies they use to make it really cash flow strongly, which is the thing. Raw land can be a good transaction business, but if you can actually sell on terms, now it becomes a cash flowing business.
Yeah. So do you guys, it sounds like you're offering 50 cents on the dollar. Do you look for, lots in city propers, or are you looking for, tertiary markets out in the countryside where you can buy 200 acres at once, or what kind of, get a little bit more deeper into the deals that you approve when you're funding them?
It's all the above. Yeah. When they're purchasing the land, I mean, it's not as often in like city type markets. I mean, it could be. And obviously their goal is probably going to be selling to a developer. It could be tertiary and it could be similar to that too. But often it might just be rural land that, again, people just want. I mean, 2020 was awesome for that, post 2020, because people were like trying to escape, right? So it wasn't just, developers or farmers or ranchers or people like that who wanted to buy the land. It was everyday Joes. They're just like, I want to have an escape. I want to have a place to go where I won't have to wear a mask, and that kind of thing. I want to just ride my ATVs or go hunting and do whatever I want, have water rights. If the whole world blows up, I've got a place to escape to and be able to take my RV or my tents and live there, that kind of thing. So we got a lot of more preppers and people like that started buying up land as well. And so it's a mixture. It really is, depending on what the land is and where you're selling it.
Are there specific markets you like to invest in? Texas, Wyoming, there's a lot of land out there. Or do you don't care, market agnostic?
Yeah, it's market agnostic. I mean, it's like nationwide, all over the place. I mean, it could be like everywhere from Tennessee to New Mexico or Arizona or, wherever, like it's just anywhere that we can find land. Often I've seen a lot of Southeast lately coming through.
Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, North Carolina, Florida, even a little bit too. I mean, that's where you see more of the developer type stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's really been all over the place. But I mean, I won't see so much up in the Midwest, or Northeast. That's pretty rare. It's going to be more almost like the Southern Belt region, mostly. All the way, even west as well, sometimes into like Arizona and stuff.
I think every deal that I've done on the land side has been in Texas. It's just a lot of land out there.
There's tons.
When you buy land, are you only looking for properties that have utility access, or do you don't care? You're just like, if
Doesn't
it's
matter.
land, I'll buy it.
Yeah, most of the time it doesn't even have utility access. It's pretty much just dirt, dirt. Well, maybe some trees too, obviously, or whatever it might be. But yeah, it's mostly just really raw land.
Yeah, and that's one reason why I like at least marketing to landowners is they don't. It's not like they don't care about their land, but they've had it for X number of years. It's just sitting there. They're not really doing anything with it. They don't have this emotional attachment like for single family, I absolutely hate marketing to single family houses because people care about they don't think of it as a business transaction. They just think of it as their home, and it's difficult to kind of, get through those emotional layers. And even businesses, people are a little bit more attached to them. If you're marketing for mobile home parks, self-storage facilities, but land, people generally, they don't have that attachment. And so it's a lot easier to do the negotiation, at least that I found. So,
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, it's just
All
not
right.
as competitive. I mean, yeah, I guess that's the right word. Or there's not as much competition as you see like in the single family space, or even like, if you're buying fourplexes or even multifamily, right? I mean, there's so many people attacking those markets, but dirt's not sexy, but I think the returns are sexy, and I think even now, I mean, it, yeah, especially in this kind of market. I mean, there's definitely still opportunity because there are, like you said, there's people that have land, but they're asset rich but cash poor, right?
Yeah.
I even have a rancher client that hired us for the passive income side. He literally just went and did a conservation easement of his land because he's like, I just got to get rid of some of this stuff and find a way to get some tax benefits or whatever because that land's not cash flowing for him. So there's plenty of opportunities for that. Where I think right now with inflation and everything else, where people are feeling that pinch, I think you're going to see more raw land become available here in the near future.
Interesting. All right. Well, hey, I just took a peek at the clock. It looks like we have run it down. So it's time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it. It starts with education. It could be any form. It could be a conference you've gone to, mentorship program you've been a part of. I just need 2 recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate.
Yeah. I think education for general wisdom. I mean, if you're a business owner, especially, I mean, any book by Mike Michalowicz is a favorite of mine. It's just like Dan Martell, Buy Your Time. It's another great one too. I love those kind of books that are just right to the point. They just get right to it, but they really do address the common issues that we run into as business owners. So I think Mike Michalowicz, Profit First is a big one. You want to make sure you're implementing a profit first system in your business. Pumpkin Plan is a great one too. For real estate, that's where I think masterminds and community groups are great, and the ones that resonate with you best. I like personally to find those people that maybe aren't like the best, flashiest type of marketers, but they're just good, down to earth, honest people with
Yeah.
good integrity and those kind of values. Whoever matches your values, go with that group, go with those people because man, having a community, that's the best way to keep your ear to the ground, not just in your local area, but nationwide to kind of feel like what's going on, right? We always hear about the California wave, what happens out west and then rolls out east. It's so good to be able to be, really dialed in and tuned into what's going on so you can be able to pivot and move however you need to do it.
Yeah. Do you have a specific mastermind that you want to call out?
I mean, I'll tell you, like, depending on the operation you're at, I mean, I just joined Investor Fuel recently. I was in Collective Genius for many, many years.
I've heard of that
Great
one a lot.
there.
Yeah.
So those are both great groups, depending on the amount of volume and stuff that you're doing or the type of real estate you're doing.
Okay. Cool. All right. Let's go to the next question. This is for your younger self. Let's go back to the Chris who was just doing that first deal. He was a financial advisor thinking, there has to be another option. Go to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Man, if I was still a financial advisor, like get out, get out now. Really, I think the biggest thing is this: is it was the advice from my dad, but I would tell myself to re-listen to that advice, which is look for real life evidence, right? It's kind of like where you put your money where the mouth is, kind of thing. Like my dad was always about like, where's the real life application here? Like, where's the actual evidence? And that's what woke me up. Because when I saw real estate investors making sick money and then financial advisors living broke. Now, they wouldn't always show that way. They'd drive the nice car or whatever, but they were living penny pinching, cheap, broke type of guys. That's not the place. They call it brokers because they're broker than you are. So the advice for me would be look at the evidence. Like take the emotion out of it, take your attachment out and just look at the evidence and follow where the prosperity is.
Nice. I like it. All right. Next question is about the U.S. It's a big place. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
Oh, repeat that last part of the question. I didn't hear it.
The single metro you're most excited about investing in.
Ooh, single metro. I would probably say I've been looking back at Florida again, just
Okay.
because Florida's kind of they had this big rush and then it got hit hard again. So I always like to go where people are running away from. Florida is one I'm kind of looking at once more just to see like where there might be that opportunity for especially for like single family homes and things like that.
Okay. Wait, is there any specific market in Florida that you like?
Not so much the internal, like, but I mean, I know Ocala has been always pretty popular, but I think there's still been okay. The Southwest region, because I know Tampa, they actually saw depreciation. Cape Coral, I mean, they got hit by the hurricanes and everything.
Yeah.
That one's like trying to rebuild, so everybody's kind of fled from that area, which is ironic because I looked up the hurricane history before that even happened. You're lucky to get one big hurricane every 15 years, and they had 2 and 3 years. So it might be a good time as they're trying to rebuild, that might be a good time, like Cape Coral, Fort Myers area, to start looking at rebuilding again.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. For some reason, Florida is one area that I'm always nervous about investing in when people send me deals, just because of the hurricanes. Climate change and all that stuff. It's just you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where insurance prices are going to go. And so it's always made me nervous, but it's always been a really good market. People have been crushing it since 2018. And so, yeah, it makes sense.
Well, and that strategy is usually only holding for about 5 or 10 years too. So it's kind of like the numbers game as well, right? It's like, okay, if they had 2 big, category 3 plus hurricanes hit in the last 3 years, they're pretty much done for the next 20, 30 years, right? So should be, statistically speaking.
Yeah. All right. Next question is about finding deals. And for this, for your perspective, since you aren't out there being an active investor looking for deals, you're looking more for partners. So you can take this either as from the perspective of looking for deals or looking for partners. But it does always start with getting into contact with that person. So what's your favorite way to generate leads and find new deals or partners?
I'll tell you, even in my own business and even for finding partners too, my number one way is that probably the thing you're doing, Gabe, which is I have a podcast. It's amazing the people you're able to meet with a podcast. So granted, masterminds are awesome for meeting the right people. And that's one of my favorites too. But having a podcast, like you can kind of get introduced to people you would not normally get introduced to if you're in just very small circles. And so that kind of broadens my ability to hit nationwide and meet new people.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever anybody asks about, should they start a podcast, I'm always like, absolutely yes. It doesn't even matter if you monetize the podcast itself, just the people you meet, the interactions you have, it's worth it in and of itself. You're bringing people on that are in your industry that you otherwise would not be speaking with. Like I don't do passive investing. And so getting your perspective from that is educating me. It's giving me an opportunity to learn. So I always, if somebody wants to start a podcast, if you have an inkling towards it, definitely do it. It's a lot of fun and you learn a lot, you grow your network. It's a really good way to do that. So good call out there. I'm going to move us to the next question. This is about lessons learned. If you're in real estate long enough, you are going to have a deal that kicks you in the face. But that's when you get to learn a lesson. So what was a deal that went a little sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
Yeah, I'll go with the time, like in the last recession, the global financial crisis, what was going on there. I wish I had done a few different things. One, like when I had my rental, definitely screening the renters, so important,
Yeah.
I mean, I know speed is important too to get people in because it's worth it, but it's not worth it renting the wrong person, and that created, it wasn't just the money, it was the stress, the stress and the distraction from it. So again, like I think it's quality over quantity all day long,
Yeah.
I'd also say this too. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, it's funny you say that. We're actually with one of our like personal houses that we own that we rent out. We're dealing with that thing. We at the time we were just like, let's get somebody in here. Somebody came and they were willing to pay the rent. And so we're like, okay, come on in. But we should have done a little bit more due diligence and they turned out to be a bad renter. And now we're having to do the transition. It's only been a year and it's just like a nightmare. And so, doing enough due diligence or really getting to know who it is that's going to be renting your property makes a big difference. You don't want to go through that headache.
It does. Well, and that's exactly it. And I would add, like I already said, don't bank on appreciation. We mentioned that earlier. Don't do that. And I would also say, I wish I was more liquid. In fact,
Mm.
being liquid with cash is so important. Don't tie up
Yes.
all your money just trying to invest and go 100% all in. That's an easy way to fail, a horrible way to fail. Right now, like I have more cash stored up than ever. I have some money in the banks, but I keep most of my money in my whole life insurance because I make
Mm.
6% a year tax free and I can get to that money whenever I want. So I keep my money more in those places just to make sure that I don't have money for emergencies, but I also have money for opportunities when everybody else is illiquid too.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes for individual deals too. If you don't underwrite enough capex, you're always going to need more than you think. And if you don't have a big enough budget, when you do the value add, you're going to run into problems. So cash is, I mean, they always say cash is king in real estate. It's 100% true. You always got to have some cash on the side in order to fix problems because cash does fix all problems in real estate. And so, yeah, that's another good call out. So yeah, that's when things go wrong, but sometimes things go 100% right and the stars align. So what was a deal that was amazing and everything went right? And tell us how it went.
Yeah, I mean, my first turnkey, the one I had to put faith into, because it was I knew I needed to win because I had so many losses in the last recession. And I remember I bought a turnkey in Memphis, which, by the way, I've never lived in Memphis. It's not exactly the best place to live. But man, like bought that turnkey property there. Not only was it cash flowing like over like 13% cash on cash, rent kept growing every year. There was appreciation. It's now worth like about 70% more. I mean, in total, I mean, my total ROI on that's been like 400% if you include the cash on
Oh, wow.
cash, paying down my mortgage, the renter's doing that, the appreciation, all the gains and stuff like that, and that's just been like 8 years. So that to me has been awesome because that's really helped rebuild my faith again to say, all right, this makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes things just go right. And I love it when that happens. All right.
Yeah. By the way,
Second to
we
last.
finally, after like 8 years, a renter finally said, I'm going to move out. It was the same renter for the entire time too. Like, when does that
Wow.
ever
That's
happen?
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. You love it when they last that long.
Yep.
All right, next question is about leadership. It takes, we're none of us are islands. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, and it is a team effort. In real estate, you have to be working with people, and that's what makes things successful. And so, what is your advice for building a team?
Make sure you identify the core values that you have first. Like, what are your non-negotiables? What are the values you hold dear? Live it. So then you could attract those people into your space and find those people too. That whether it's a mastermind group, whether it's business partners, whatever it is, heck, even your marriage partner, right? Those core values need to align. If they don't, you just create distress, you create issues, it creates, a lot of mess and heartache, so make sure you're aligning your core values. Know yours first and foremost. Identify and be very, very clear on them and what you're willing to hold to, and then find the people that do the same.
Perfect. All right, that leads us to the last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
Yeah, look up anything that's Money Ripples, right? MoneyRipples.com, at Money Ripples on social media, even our Money Ripples podcast that we have on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. I mean, all of that stuff, right? Like that's what we really love to do. And our main thing is really just how does someone become work optional, where you have enough passive income coming in that you can work because you want to, not because you have to. And especially as an entrepreneur, that's so much fun because you end up making so much more money when you know you don't need the money in business, right? That's the thing that's kind of fun. So that's really what we focus on is like those financial strategies outside of Wall Street, the things that are more like mainstream investing, even more the creative alternative investments. That's the stuff that we love to teach and talk about.
Perfect. I'll put that link in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out to Chris, all you got to do is click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description, and in there you can find Chris's links. All right, man, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Been a pleasure, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.